Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and if it's your first time here then a very warm welcome and thank you for being here. So today we're going to do a journal page and I'm in my small Ranger art journal, and the first thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to take this piece of paper. It's a lovely white wooden paper and this is from the Kaisercraft base coat collection. And this piece is called Shabby Chic. So I'm going to use it this way, I think, across the page. And I'm just going to cut it down to size first of all. And then I'm going to tear and distress the edges a little bit because I don't want it perfect on my page. I want to give it a bit of a weathered look. So we'll go ahead and get cracking on that. So just making a rough guide with my pencil to the edges of the pages. And you can sort of feel it with finger pressure when you're going round. So let's cut that out. Okay, so there we go. So I'm going to use a finger again to mark the middle of the page. Just score it down the centre of the book, just so that it gives you a bit of an indent. And then I'm going to be using a distressing tool from Prima and just going around the edges and giving it that weathered look. So there's my paper all distressed and torn, and just before I stick that down I'm actually going to put a layer of Tattered Angels high impact paint in black. I'm just going to put that around the edges where you're going to see the edge of the paper underneath this top sheet. So just using a brush to apply that. Right, so now that that paint's dry, I'm going to go ahead and stick the paper down to it. And to do that, I'm just going to use a Pritt stick. Good old trusty Pritt stick. I'm going to do one side first and then the other, because that makes it slightly easier and you can get it in line. Okay, so now I'm going to add some texture to the page, and for that I'm going to be using a Dusty Attic stencil, and this is called Creative Script, and some Art Basics modelling paste. If we can open it. Here we go. And I'm going to apply that with a palette knife. And this doesn't have to be perfect, I just want it pretty random. And then I'm also going to add a bit more texture using this stencil from the Crafter's Workshop. and this is called Mini Well Rounded. Now I'm going to add a bit of colour to the page. So I'm going to be using Lindy Stamp Gang sprays and some water to make them merge. And I'm starting off, I think, with Black Orchid Silver. Make sure you give them a good shake. I'm going to hold my page up and I'm going to spray this at the edge. Then I'm going to add some water. And let it run down the page. And just tilt your book so it goes where you want it to. If you have any pooling that you don't particularly like, you can just soak that up with a piece of kitchen towel. And you can always add some more water just to make it run a bit better. And then next I'm going to go in with Midnight Rendezvous Raven, and I'm going to use that around the edges, and I'm going to use the stick in the bottle to apply that so I get it exactly where I want it. And then next I'm going to add some Opal Sea Oats to soften it up a bit and add a bit more of a warmer colour. And now I'm going to dry that off using my heat gun, and I'm going to do exactly the same to the opposite side in this upper left corner so that the pages kind of match. Now around the edges I'm going to go and add a bit more black, but I'm also going to add some of the Opal Sea Oats as well, just so I can concentrate a bit more of that rusty kind of look around the edges. So now that's dry, I love the way that the mica's picking up here, this rusty colour. It's really pretty, really shimmery. Hope you can see that. Gives a really lovely effect. And so for the focal point of the page, I'm going to be using this image of this lady, and this is from 7 Dot Studio Fortune Teller collection. So I'm going to cut her out. And then I'm also going to be using a couple of these tags, and this is from 7 Dot Studio Writer's Block collection, and also these element stickers from the Writer's Block collection as well. There's 2 sheets of those. So I'm going to cut her out first, and then we'll have a play around and see what looks good where. Right, so I've got the photo of her cut out, and I'm just going to go around and distress the photo just like I did the edge of the paper. And then once that's done, I'm just going to darken those edges up using a Memento Dewdrop ink pad in Tuxedo Black. Right, so now I'm going to layer her onto one of the tags from that Writer's Block tag sheet. And I've chosen to use this one with the black background. So she's going to overhang, but I'm not just going to leave her on that tag. I'm also going to add a couple of feathers behind her and a couple of strips of corrugated card. So they'll sort of go along the outside like that, and then she'll be raised up over the middle. And then the feathers will go somewhere in the middle and behind her as well. But I may chop the bottoms off those. So let's start and see how we get on. To glue everything down together, I'm going to use Art Basics 3D matte gel. Okay, so while that piece is drying off, I'm also going to be adding a piece of lace across the page. So I'm going to dye that using one of the Lindy sprays that we used earlier, which was the Black Orchid Silver. So let's move her out of the way a sec. And I'm just going to spritz this over bits of the lace, and I'm also going to add a bit of water. Just pull it through. And then I'll add another bit on the other end. I want it darker in some places and not so much in others. So it ends up like that. I might actually add just a tiny bit of black just to the very ends. Okay, and just again spray that little bit with water so it all sort of blends in together. And there we go. So I'm just going to leave that to dry for a minute. Right, so I've positioned my lace just about where I want it, but I am going to cut it so that I can make this bit a little bit higher than this piece. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue it down, and I'm going to be using Art Basics Soft Matte Gel, and I've put that in a precision bottle. So we're going to cut that just underneath, so about there. And we're going to leave that bit there, and just check the position when I'm putting the focal point on top. So yeah, that's about where I want it. So I'm going to just glue those down. And now I've got here some little tiny screw heads and nuts and bolts, and they are from a place called Things to Alter, and I'm going to glue those on top of the lace and brush over them using some Viva Inca Gold, and that is in copper. So let's find what I want. So I'm only going to use a couple. And again, sticking those down with the with the soft matte gel. Just concentrating hardening. Okay, so I've zoomed right in so you can see, and with the Inca Gold, I'm just taking a flat end dry brush, just rubbing my brush in it a tiny bit, and then dry brushing the Inca Gold very lightly over them. Now, really I should have waited for them to dry, but I'm really impatient, so I didn't. But that just gives it a lovely hint of rusty copper, which is then again going to pick out the mica from the Lindy Stamp Gang sprays we added earlier. Okay, so now I'm going to start adding my bits and pieces together. So we've got a picture of the lady, and I've also taken another tag from that 7 Dot Studio Writer's Block tag sheet, and I'm going to position that somewhere behind, probably somewhere around there. And then I've also got half of a chipboard here. This is from Scrapiniac, and I'm going to add that underneath as well, but I'm probably going to rust that up a bit first, or possibly spray that, what was it called again? Opal Sea Oats Lindy spray over that. And then I've also got a little admittance ticket that will pop in there somewhere, and another little tag there. And those are both from that 7 Dot Studio pack as well. Then I have some Tim Holtz Ideology lace chain. I'm going to attach that through the loop of the main tag. And I've got some Tim Holtz Ideology chain tassels. I'm going to pop one of those at the bottom here, I think. So it's kind of like a continuation of her chain coming off the page. So I'll go ahead and add all those down. So now that I've got all those little bits added together for this piece, before I stick this down, because I don't want to get anything on the photo, I'm going to move that to one side, and I'm just going to go back in with that Lindy Stamp Gang spray in Midnight Rendezvous Raven, and I'm going to add a couple of splatters. So I'm just going to take the stick, wipe most of the excess off, and just add a few splashes, not many. Right, so now that all those pieces are in place, I still haven't stuck her down yet because I am going to want to add a little bit of background stamping underneath that, but we'll just leave it there for now. So I'm going to work on this side. I've taken another 3 of those tags from the 7 Dot Studio paper, and I'm going to fit those together, I'll glue them so that they stay in place, and then the leftover chain from there I'm going to attach through those. I've also taken these 3 pieces, 2 little tags and a star, you can see those, again from the 7 Dot Studio paper. I've got a little bit of this sort of natural coloured web mesh stuff. If I can find the link for it, I will link it below. And then I've got a couple of little trinkets that I want to add. I've got a little heart from Finnavar, and I've got again a Tim Holtz Ideology heart charm, and you can choose the photo that you want to put in there. And I've got some Tim Holtz Ideology gem clips, so I'm going to attach those as well. So we'll just get on fiddling about and seeing how I want things. Right, so I'm going to move those out the way now, and I'm going to add some background stamping using this Kaisercraft chicken wire stamp. And I'm going to use that with Ranger's Archival ink in jet black. I'm not using an acrylic block. I want this to be flexible so that I can just place it wherever I feel like it. And also, I don't want the stamp to be too heavy with ink. So I'm going to dab it on my tissue first to make sure that it's not completely saturated. So let's move her out the way. I mean, literally, I just want a bit. I don't want much. Yeah, and that is as much as I want. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and stick all those down now, and I'm going to be using the 3D matte gel for that, and again with my palette knife, and just really securing them to the page. So giving it quite a good, not thick, but a decent covering of the gel. And then I'm going to finish the page off by adding one last tag from that 7 Dot Studio collection, this black one. And I'm going to add one of these little pieces on top. And then we're going to put a sentiment in the middle of that. And the one that I wanted was this one, Gypsy at Heart. I'm going to add some more of those tiny little screw head from Things to Alter so that it looks like it's been screwed onto the page. And when those are dry, I will add the Deco Art Inca Gold and Copper again to those. So we'll glue that down now.